how does what happens between Israel and Palestine compare to our inner world? Or how does Hamas phenomena compares to that of our inner world? This event with Hamas crashed into our lives, taking most of us by surprise. And whether I wanted it or not, I found myself plunged again into geopolitics 101. But because I operate a lot in the world of therapy, studying the inner geography of us as humans, my brain couldn't help but notice the striking analogy of what we do to ourselves internally and why we experience similar wars within. So, how does Hamas phenomena compare to that of our inner world? I will look at this through the lens of internal family systems approach, and if you're not familiar with that, there is a link in one of the upper corners, and I'll add one in the description as well. From the little that I knew of Israel-Palestine situation, I knew there is constant low-level tensions between the two. And I was also kind of impressed by the much hailed military capabilities of Israel and the Iron Dome system they have developed to deter any rockets attack from the Gaza Strip. Why were those things launched? Because Gaza Strip is where the bad guys lived. These are the bad guys and we need to ban them. That's it. That's all my knowledge as far as I was aware. And then the breach in security on October 7th happened. And I've learned that Gaza Strip and the folks there seem to have lived in a pretty confined place, pretty much exiled, with Israel controlling their borders, gas and water supplies, and that their needs and interests are at odds with that of Israel. So polarized that they keep pushing against each other in a constant tug of war. Most of the time, Israel prevails at keeping it contained, and at times Gaza breaks out and causes havoc, and then Israel pushes it back into the corner. And now it's a huge crisis because Gaza escaped and it is stronger and it is determined to take over, to let itself be heard and contended with. And this is almost precisely what happens within our inner world when we exile a part of us, keeping it away from our consciousness, or if not from our consciousness, at least from letting it express out in the family or in the society at large. This is usually done by other parts of us that take over. The parts that are banned are usually feelings and associated behaviors that are either painful or seen as shameful or that cause a lot of problems, that are destructive and putting us at a disadvantage with other people, or that are unacceptable in the society. For example, rage, all kinds of addictions, antisocial tendencies, and underneath that, all kinds of fears such as fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, loneliness, fear of looking weak, and underneath that, feelings of shame and insignificance. We ban them. But rejecting these, banning them, never really addresses the needs behind that cause this behavior. Some of these act as protective mechanisms, and others are the vulnerable, protected ones. Let's look at an example. Let's take rage. Rage, it's a powerful protector. It commands a great deal of power and strength, and it's powered by these hormones produced in our body, such as adrenaline and cortisol, makes us unstoppable. In IFS, when we talk about protective parts, they are divided in two categories. The firefighters that come on usually when there is a threat, or usually when something has happened like an injustice, and the firefighters, protectors step in to fix that, to solve that in their best of intention. And managers are the parts that are proactive. They come in to set things up so that something doesn't happen, so that something is taken care of. And in this case, Rage can come across as a manager protector or power up another group of managers that will carry out a planned aggressive intervention. Because rage is so destructive and it can cause so much chaos, and it can really hurt not just the targeted enemy, but also a lot of vulnerable people in the process. If it's a family, children would be very much impacted, sometimes for a lifetime. And because rage brings this kind of results, then we have parts of us that will ban it. So we form these parts of us that grow to hate the raging aspect of us and find ways to keep it under lead. These would be very proactive managers that are driven by the fear of what this rage can do to us and will manage your entire life so that this rage doesn't get triggered. Does this make sense? I will note also that these are aspects of us, but not the totality of us. Because if you sit back and observe both of these, the raging part and the one that hates it and wants to ban it and criticizes and judges it, then you will see there is this polarization within your system. Yet there is somebody that observes that. And this is the core of who we are. This is the place where we can observe both of these parts. And one of the characteristics of this core is curiosity. But back to the rage. Because this rage is only banned and locked away, and it's never looked at, never solved, what is not solved persists. What will happen as a result? The anger, the raging will become stronger and bigger, and that would require more resources and efforts on the parts that keep this under control. Those parts of us are usually exhausted by the job of keeping this under control. How does that translate in life? These take the form of limiting beliefs that are powered by a fear of going out and achieving our greatest dreams, greatest desires, because of the fear that somehow putting ourselves out there in different circumstances, we might get triggered. This raging part might get triggered, and it would take so much effort from our side to keep it under, to keep it locked away, that that seems exhausting. So it's better for us to just stay in, stay low, don't dare for much. And often you'd find another kind of polarization within these systems, a part that really longs to get out there, to really live to its highest, fullest potential. And then this part that is, no, don't do that, stay low, you don't want to risk that. Then everyone will see who you really are. Everyone will see what kind of person you scare people away. No, you don't want to do that, because often that is exactly what these parts fear, that people will see how bad you are, that people will see what a terrible person you are, that you're actually not who you present yourself to be. But what if there was another way to deal with this so that it be solved in a way where there is not so much wearing down and pressure on the system? There is actually a way, and that is when we approach both of these parts with curiosity from the core self, instead of turning away from the rage, rather facing it with openness and asking, what is it that you're raging about? What is it about that particular situation that caused you to flare up? When you are able to approach it from a place of curiosity and listen to all this and be able to offer this compassionate understanding to the pain and the whole story of how these parts get created, that's a process where the healing starts to happen. From there, you can find ways to help fulfill the needs of these parts from a different place. And then you can turn to the parts that hate this rage and help them also understand the perspective of this part and why it's been doing what it's been doing, and also offer support to that aspect. So this is how Hamas was dealt with, from a place of fearful managers that had to control it and keep it contained. It hasn't really helped, and it has led to these results. And this is how it compares to how this happens in our inner system. It's really hard when these two parts take over, because when they take over your system, it's this and only perspective that makes sense, and there is no way how this can be looked upon differently. Finding the place where one can step back and then observe that's the place where healing and change can really happen, harmonizing things in the system. So could that be achieved in the real world, in this geopolitical situation of conflict? I think if the people were driven and led by this core divine self that we all are born with, and that is characterized by love and kindness, courage and confidence, calm and perspective, if these two governments were to be led by that and see a different way of how humanity could live, I think that could definitely be achieved. But so far, both parties are led by their objectives to stand their ground and by fear. So as long as fear is the controlling element on both sides, and the lack of trust, then yes, peace would be difficult to achieve. On this bright note, I hope this has been insightful in terms of how to deal with some of the most painful and difficult to face feelings. For your sake, for the sake of your family and your children and future generation. You take care and keep the hope alive.